Welcome everyone to our Sunday evening Dharma and Sutra talk. And tonight will be our fourth session on the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. And we've come to the third great vow, to extensively cultivate making offerings. So before we go into the sutra discussion, I'd like you to bring your hands to your heart center, and we'll all read or recite, if you can, the sutra opening verse together. So please join your hands to your heart center. Namo Fundamental Teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. The unsurpassed, profound, subtle, and wondrous Dharma. It's difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of kalpas. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold it. May we understand the true meaning of the Tathagata. Namo Flower Adornment Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Great Practices Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. Namo Amitabha Buddha. Okay, so just a quick review for those who may be here for the first time. So in the previous sessions, we talk about the importance of the sutra, the practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra counts as one of the 5 Pure Land Sutras, and it's also one of the last chapter, and it's also the final chapter of the Avatamsaka Sutra. So if not the most, one of the most highly important Mahayana sutras in Mahayana Buddhism. So Bodhisattva Samantabhadra used the 10 great vows to direct Suddhana, also a bodhisattva, and all the countless bodhisattvas in the Flower Adornment Assembly to seek rebirth to the Pure Land. So sometimes when we see this Flower Adornment Assembly and the Lotus Assembly, all this assembly, it means that this is where this sutra was held. So it's called the Flower Adornment Assembly. The sutra name is called the Flower Adornment Sutra. So for those bodhisattvas who are there to attend this talk by the Buddha, and here by Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, is also called the Flower Adornment Assembly. So Bodhisattva Samantabhadra tells all the countless bodhisattvas to all seek rebirth to the Pure Land. Now, since we are learning Mahayana Buddhism, we are learning the Buddha Dharma, obviously we are learning from the bodhisattvas, we are learning from the Buddhas. So they really like our role model. And where do they go? All the bodhisattvas all seek rebirth to the Pure Land. And remember, we talk about how all Dharma gates arise from the Avatamsaka Sutra. Avatamsaka Sutra is like this huge tree with many branches that has give rise to all these different Dharma gates, like all these different branches of Buddhism, all these different practices now we see from different schools. All this can be found in the Avatamsaka Sutra. It's also called the king of all sutras. And eventually all Dharma gates return to the Pure Land. So we can see really the significance of the Pure Land Dharma and also why this is also a Pure Land Sutra. So when we learn about the Buddha Dharma and the Pure Land Dharma, we are not just talking about what happens after this life. We also want to live a good life now and also eternal bliss after. But also need to always keep in mind that whatever we experience here in the Saha world, Earth is one, just a tiny, tiny planet in the Saha world. Everything is impermanent. So the Saha world is like 1 trichiliocosm, the teaching range of Shakyamuni Buddha that include many words, and Earth is one of them. But everything here is absolutely impermanent. There is nothing that we can bring with us. Everything we experience here is impermanent. So yes, we want to live a good life here, albeit it's impermanent. We should also think about more for the long term, by not only looking at this life. And that's why the Buddha's teaching is important. The goal for all Buddhists is what? To attain the ultimate enlightenment, to realize the final Buddhahood, Anuttaya Sanya Sambodhi. We must not forget the ultimate goal of why we are practicing the Dharma. It's not only for having a good life here, but it's also really for having a good life internally after. So we must remember that as Buddhists, why we are learning the Buddha Dharma, it's not only for living a good life now in this lifetime, but also to really realize eternal bliss, infinite light and life, to realize full Buddhahood, Anuttaya Sanya Sambodhi. We must dream big. When people are talking about dreaming big, this is what I call dream big. We must have this big goal in our life. And why it's actually important to have this big goal in our life, particularly for people who are on the Mahayana path. When we keep this big goal in mind, then we will not be so easily distracted by whatever mundane issues or petty issues in our life. We will not be so easily bothered by little things in our life, because we know that we actually have a much greater goal that we want to achieve. So whatever obstacles we may experience here, they're still temporary. And it's actually not a big deal if we were to think about what we're going to achieve in the future, right? So it's important to have a big goal, big vision. Like entrepreneurs in our world, entrepreneurs who are really successful are also those who have great vision. Like for instance, Elon Musk, also Jack Ma in China, like all these entrepreneurs, they also have really big vision for their company, even when they were just a startup. So it's a bit like us here. We also have a big vision. When we practice the Bodhisattva path, like we know our final goal is to realize Buddhahood, to realize infinite light and life. So doesn't matter what kind of obstacles or issues or petty stuff that we may encounter in our everyday life. And also this is similar actually to run a company, like they will face a lot of obstacles. But for those entrepreneurs with really great vision, for them, they know that it doesn't matter what they encounter, they can overcome. It is also a little bit like that, like a metaphor. So this, if we think about our big goal in our everyday life, then we will actually not be bothered by many little things. A lot of time we are easily bothered by maybe what happened in our family, in our work, etc. It's because we forget that we actually have bigger things to do here. We have a big goal for ourselves. And how to realize this ultimate enlightenment, realize full Buddhahood. Remember, we also talk about no bodhisattvas, like absolutely no bodhisattva can achieve this big goal without the 10 great practices and vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. So in the Avatamsaka Sutra, each bodhisattva tells us that they realize samadhi through one particular method, whether it's Nianfo or other methods, but they all perfect these 10 great vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra in order to realize final Buddhahood. So this is essentially the life manual for us. This life manual, and I'm referring to the 10 great practices and vows, can guide our body, speech, and mind. If we can follow this with our body, speech, and mind, eventually perfect them. Now we're not perfect, we're like kindergarten. If you generate bodhicitta, we're like kindergarten Guanyin, like kindergarten Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, kindergarten Amitabha Buddha, kindergarten Shakyamuni Buddha. Eventually, if we can perfect this with our body, speech, and mind, then that's when we realize our Buddhahood. And for Pure Land practitioners, we will do that after we go to the Pure Land. Here is a bit too difficult, but at least here, if we get to know this, at least we can apply even like maybe 10%, or maybe 10% can be even too difficult. 5%, 1% in our everyday life, your life will definitely be transformed. You can really live a happy, a peaceful, and meaningful life while you are here on earth temporarily. This is really how bodhisattvas live their lives. If you ask, what do enlightened beings do after they realize enlightenment? What do bodhisattvas do after they realize enlightenment? They do this. They do the 10 great practices and vows. And it's really a habit we need to constantly cultivate. We need to first learn, and then we need to cultivate constantly. Why is that? If we don't cultivate in accordance to these 10 great practices and vows, if we don't cultivate in accordance to the teachings of the Buddha, then we're going to follow all our bad habits. Or in Buddhism, we call it habitual tendency. Right? We have all this habitual tendency, for instance, attachment to illusions, greed, anger, and ignorance, like all these defiled mental states. That's exactly why we are being trapped in the Saha world for countless eons, for so long, because we have this habit which creates this karma, this creates this karmic force, and this karmic force keeps dragging us back into the cycle of reincarnation. So if we want to exit the cycle of reincarnation, we need to break our habitual tendency. Even for Nianfo practitioners, if you have really, really strong attachment to the Saha world, as a Nianfo practitioner, you also need to be mindful. You need to at least make sure that your attachment to the Pure Land is stronger than your attachment to the Saha world. For you to seek rebirth to the Pure Land, remember faith, vow, and practice. You need to vow to go to the Pure Land. And at the time of death, you actually need to let go of all your attachment to the Saha world, so you can definitely attain rebirth to Amitabha Buddha's Pure Land. And the previous 2 sessions, we also talk about the first vow, to pay homage to all Buddhas, past, present, and future in the 10 directions, which really include all sentient beings, including us. We are like the future Buddhas. So because all Buddhas, all beings have the Buddha nature, we also share the same Buddha nature as Amitabha Buddha, as Shakyamuni Buddha, as all the Buddhas in the 10 directions. That's why we should respect all beings. If you think there is no reason for you to respect someone, maybe you dislike, just remember this vow. Because remember that they also have the Buddha nature. And by doing this, by respecting others, respecting all beings, by seeing and acknowledging the Buddha nature in all beings, this helps us to realize the oneness in all beings. This helps us to drop our mind of separation. And this is actually what can create world peace and unity. Why we have wars, we have conflicts, afflictions everywhere on earth. It's because of people's mind of separation. We see people are different, we are different from others. That's why people argue all the time, they fight with each other all the time. They don't know that, in fact, we are also equal in terms of our Buddha nature. So it's important that we actually respect all beings, because all beings have the same Buddha nature. And just because it's also a nice thing to do. And when we respect others, it also can reduce a lot of afflictions in our life. A lot of afflictions also generate from us not respecting others, maybe disrespecting others, or look down at others, etc. And the second vow, to praise the Tathagatas. So to praise the Buddha nature in all beings, to see the good in others, to see the kindness in others. And why this is good? No one is perfect. Usually we have the habitual tendency to not see the good in others. We have the habitual tendency to pick faults in others, and then we enter into arguments with others because we are picking up on other people. And this can generate a lot of afflictions for ourselves and also other people. So if we can try to see the good in all beings, in every being, or maybe just too difficult, like just around you, the people around you actually, your family, your friends, try to see the good in others. And this can also reduce a lot of afflictions for ourselves and to make your life easier. And remember, the sutra also says like how to use our root of tongue to praise others, to use the words like seeds of praising, like not seeds of suffering. Now we're very good at dumping our rubbish on others and talking about maybe our suffering or other people's suffering, like the media, the mainstream media is always like seeds of suffering. Right? Imagine if the whole world all turned into like seeds of praising, praise other people, like praise other country, like praise all the people, like the good things in others, then the whole vibration and energy of earth will definitely shift. Will definitely change. Because we cannot control those what other people say and what the media says, right? But at least what we can do is to control ourselves, right? Control our body, speech, and mind, and try to praise other people, right? To see the good in others. And when I say to praise other people, I don't mean that other people will not commit faults. Even if they can commit faults, we still try to see the good in others. This also helps us to reduce our afflictions. But one thing is that sometimes maybe if you go and study with a Dharma teacher like me, right? I'm studying with my Dharma teacher, Master Renshan, and he may not always praise me. I often not. And this is common. And we should not think, oh, why my teacher is not practicing this vow. So this is like called a skillful means of the Bodhisattvas. Your teacher cannot always praise you. Most likely, he will not praise you. This is really, he is trying to help you improve. And because he knows that you can take it, so he does that. Master Renshan also adopt different skillful means to different people. To people who maybe are not his disciples, then he will always praise. But to people who are really his disciples, and he knows that we can actually take whatever criticism, critical feedback well, then he will really also be upfront with us, be really strict and sometimes even harsh with us. And this we should not see the fault in the teacher. Right? The disciple, the student should never pick on the fault on the teacher. And this is really what's called a skillful means of the Bodhisattvas. But for us, like we should not try to use this skillful means on others unless you know that the other person can actually take it. A lot of people, they may not be able to take maybe serious criticisms well. They may not think they've done wrong. So in that case, I just do not bother to enter into arguments with other people. I try to see the good in others, to keep peace and harmony. And this is also important in family, in workplace. And also, if there is any reason to praise, maybe someone you think that's not worthy of your praising at all, similar to the first vow, maybe you think there's someone in your life, you just cannot possibly praise that person or respect that person. Just remember, in the end, they also have the same Buddha nature as us and all beings. And that's always a good reason to praise. And today we're going to look at the third vow, to extensively cultivate making offerings. And this is actually highly, highly important. And one of the most important, actually, all of them are important, but this is extremely practical for all of us. And also, if you want to increase your blessings in your life, this is actually what you need to do. So if we talk about the first vow, to pay homage to all the Buddhas, it's like an attitude, to respect all beings. It's our attitude. And the second vow, to praise the Tathagatas, to praise the Buddha nature in all beings. This is like speech. And today we're going to talk about our actions, what we're going to do. After we respect them, we praise them, and we should also extensively cultivate making offerings. Highly important. So we'll look at the sutra first. From the sutra, moreover, good men, to extensively cultivate making of offerings is explained like this. Throughout the end of the Dharma realm and the realm of empty space, all the Buddha lands, like 5 motes of dust in the 10 directions and 3 periods of time, in each and every land, There are Buddhas as numerous as fine motes of dust in all worlds. Each and every Buddha land is surrounded by various ocean-wide assembly of bodhisattvas. I, with the power of Samantabhadra's practices and vows, give rise to deep faith and understanding, can see and know them clearly. I make offerings to them with superb and wonderful gifts. And I want to keep going with the sutra. So we look at the next slide first. That is to say, clouds of flowers, clouds of garlands, clouds of heavenly music, clouds of heavenly canopies, clouds of heavenly clothing, all various heavenly incense, perfumes, burning incense, powder incense, clouds of gifts such as this. Each and every offering is as large as King Mount Sumeru, burning all kinds of lamps, butter lamps, oil lamps, and lamps with all the fragrant oils. The lamppost is as tall as Mount Sumeru. Each and every oil is like the water of the vast ocean. With all kinds of offerings such as this, I constantly make offerings. So Bodhisattva Samantabhadra is telling us how he practiced constantly cultivate making offerings. So to extensively cultivate making offerings, this is really an upgrade to the 6 parameters. Remember, we talk about the 6 parameters, the 6 perfections of the bodhisattvas. The first one is giving. Remember, giving. So why giving is the first one? Why not precepts? Precepts comes second. Why not patience? Cultivating forbearance, patience. Why not this come first? Why giving comes first? Does anyone know? If you want to share, you're welcome. Why do you think in the 6 parameters, giving is actually the first act Bodhisattva should practice?
Yeah, Jiawen, I think generosity giving, right, is the easiest to practice. So we go from the easiest to the most difficult. That's what I understand. Thank you.
Easiest. Okay, good point.
Well,
Not sure whether it's the easiest to practice. For some people, maybe it's difficult to give. For some people, maybe they like to meditate there all the time instead of giving. So why practicing giving generosity comes first on the 6 parameters? Because remember the goal of the Buddha Dharma, right? If we want to realize enlightenment, we always need to link to the goal as well. If we want to realize enlightenment, like to the stage of aha, for instance, before we even talk about bodhisattvas, is to let go of our ego, right? We need to let go of attachment, all kinds of attachment to the Saha world, if we want to exit the cycle of reincarnation. Now, I'm not talking about just for Nianfo practitioners, but actually like all Buddhists, maybe including those who practice like self-effort methods. If they were to realize enlightenment, they first need to let go of attachment. And what's the best way for us to let go of attachment? Attachment to material things, material possessions, attachment to the ego identity, attachment to all kinds of things. It's actually through giving. For bodhisattvas, through giving, one can practice letting go of our attachment to all kinds of things, whatever we can give. So this eventually can also lead us towards more liberation of the mind and freedom. So for Bodhisattva path, it's important that we actually need to constantly cultivate giving and generosity. But here, notice the language is very different. It's not saying giving to extensively giving, to give. It's not saying that. It's saying to extensively cultivate making offerings. This is really like an upgrade. If you think about to practice giving is like an iPhone 6. This we're talking about iPhone 10. It's a new version, an upgraded version, a much, much better version. Because sometimes what's the difference in this? It's like really the attitude. If you say, I give to you, or I donate to charity, maybe I give to you maybe a beggar on the road, and then you give this to others, or you donate to a charity, the attitude is actually different than if you say, I make offerings to you. I'm not saying like always, depending on the person who practices this giving, but if we were to use this word, it sounds a bit like I'm a bit superior than you. I have much more than you, so I give to you. It sounds a little bit like that. But to extensively cultivate making offerings, like making offering is different. It's like really you are like my Buddha. I see the Buddha nature in you. Remember the attitude. I respect the Buddha nature in all beings. I praise the Buddha nature in you, and therefore I make offerings to you because I know that you are also a Buddha. Now you are just asleep, an asleep Buddha, a future Buddha. I respectfully make offerings to you. I please accept my offering. And we see there's actually a vast difference in attitude. And with this, we're really talking about non-self. Right? For bodhisattvas who has let go of the self, then they can extensively cultivate making offerings. For us, maybe we are still kind of like practicing giving a little bit, but we should also really try to learn from the bodhisattva, the spirit of how bodhisattva actually cultivate making offerings. So it's really consistent, like from their attitude, the mind, and from their speech, like to praise the Tathagatas, and from their actions to extensively cultivate making offerings. And also here, extensive also means vast. What is vast? What is extensive? It's also our Buddha nature, our true nature of the heart, true nature of the mind. Now, when we talk about the Buddha nature, all beings have the same Buddha nature. People may be confused by what exactly is the Buddha nature. What exactly is the mind, the heart we talk about in Buddhism? Right? The true nature of the mind, true nature of the heart. It's not just the brain or the mental thoughts that we talk about, that how maybe conventional people or people who practice other practices, when they talk about the mind or the heart, it's very narrow. Right? Not talking about the organs for sure, also not talking about just the mental thoughts or these mental activities of brain and all this. It's not like that at all, actually. The mind, the heart, is much more beyond this physical body. Also the Buddha nature, it's absolutely boundless. It's also formless, but it appears in all forms. It contains whatever that can be contained in the entire Dharma realms. The entire Dharma realms means the entire existence in all worlds. Now, when we talk about this concept, we don't actually know, because what we may comprehend as the empty space, like in the Sutra, we talk about the empty space, the Dharma realm and all this. We actually don't know what exactly is the empty space. The empty space we see, like maybe we think the sky, whatever is the empty space. Whatever we can see or comprehend with our mind, it's only like a piece of cloud. When we're actually talking about the vastness, the extensiveness of the true nature of our mind, of the Buddha nature, it's actually much, much, much beyond that. Now, whatever we can comprehend as the empty space, and maybe like the universe, whatever we think as the empty space, is like nothing. Whatever we experience is like nothing, only like a piece of cloud in the entire Dharma realm. And our Buddha nature is like the entire Dharma realm. It's like the entire empty space. There is absolutely nothing outside of it. It contains absolutely everything. So that's what we call vast, extensiveness, boundless, like the empty space. But now what we think of our heart, our mind, is actually very little. Our comprehension of our mind, our understanding is very little. It's like we're being trapped in this little bubble, also little prison actually. The Saha world, the samsara, is like a little prison for the mind. So our understanding, our perceptions are all very narrow. And that's why we're very selfish. And we're selfish and we like to be calculated in our life, maybe with our family members, maybe with our colleagues at work, maybe even with our friends. Now, I'm not saying all people are selfish, but like to a certain extent, we all have this egoistic self. We are all attached to this illusional ego self. And that's what makes us mind so narrow. And that's what stops us from actually realizing the true nature of our true mind. And now we are very much grasped just to the illusional mind. So if we want to actually enjoy great blessings in our life, we definitely need to expand our heart, expand our mind to make offerings. That's why here it says to extensively, not just to cultivate making offerings, but rather to extensively, to vastly, to greatly cultivate making offerings, really telling us to try to expand our mind, expand our heart, to not to grasp to whatever illusional things that we think we may possess here. Just remember, whatever we possess here, impermanent, nothing belongs to you actually. And when you let go of everything, then everything belongs to you. It's a bit like that. Really interesting. So how can we actually expand our heart to make offerings? Who we can make offerings to? As Buddhists, we can begin with the three jewels. The Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha are very important, the three jewels. It's not like the three jewels actually need. We need this opportunity that's given by the three jewels. For instance, we can extensively cultivate making offerings, maybe to the Sangha, to temple, to monasteries. And whenever we encounter people like that, this is an opportunity actually for us to cultivate making offerings. Again, it's not like the temple actually needs money from us. Sometimes people ask, do our temple needs money? Blah, blah, blah. I want to make donation, blah, blah, blah. So it's good. I rejoice in people's merit and generosity. Again, this is the attitude of giving and not the attitude of making offerings. So in Chinese Buddhism, we never say we give or donate to the Sangha. This word is never used. We always say we make offerings and respectfully make offerings to the Sangha, to the temple, or maybe for me, like to my teacher, to Master Rinchen, it's always making offerings. It's not just like I give you some money, I donate to you. It's not like that. The attitude is entirely different. And again, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, they actually don't need money from us. People may think, oh, but the Sangha needs money to support themselves in their temple life. Well, Shakyamuni Buddha, before he entered into parinirvana, he left 1 cent of his blessings to the beings in the Saha world, monks, actually. Monks, whoever that take the monastic life in the Saha world, and he guarantees that for whoever takes the monastic life, they will never ever be starved, no matter what. Even if when no one on earth makes offerings. Of course, that's not possible, but because Shakyamuni Buddha left his blessings to the Sangha, because the Sangha actually keeps and upholds the right teachings of the Buddha. But the Buddha left a bit of 1 cent, only 1 cent of his blessings. And this is actually enough for all the monks and nuns, monasteries to survive, actually, to the disappearance of the Dharma in the Saha world. So for the Sangha, not only each monk and nun will enjoy their individual blessings that they carry with them from their past life, they will also get to enjoy the blessings of the Buddha. So one should never worry about the Sangha not to have enough money, actually. We should actually be worried about whether we can actually get an opportunity to make offerings to the Sangha, to the three jewels, so we can get to enjoy more blessings in our life, maybe later on, and definitely when we go to the Pure Land. And because when we make offerings, it's really the process of doing this helps us to expand our mind, to expand our heart, and also to let go of our attachment to illusional things. Like even money is illusion here. Sure, we need a bit of money to survive in the world, but you cannot take however much money you make with you at the time of death. Remember, when impermanence happens, you cannot take your bank account with you. Which bank account you can actually take with you is the bank account of your karma, the good and bad deeds you've done, the balance sheet of your good deeds and your bad deeds, and not the balance sheet in the bank account. You cannot take that. So whether how much billions you make in this world, on Forbes, they have all these richest people, all these numbers, these billions are in essence just the illusions, absolutely nothing they can actually take with them at the time of impermanence. So it's also important for us to realize this early on in our life, so we're not too much attached to illusional things, and we know that what's actually important for us. So as Buddhists, we can also cultivate making offerings to the Sangha. And why I say this first, why I don't talk about maybe your family, your friends, all these are also important. But I talk about this Sangha to talk about the 3 jewels first, because if you want to enjoy greater blessings in your life, not just normal blessings, but if you want your blessings to be like maybe much 100-fold than other deeds you've done. Say if you can choose to maybe donate to some other conventional activities, or to donate to the Sangha, to the temple, to the monasteries. And the purpose for you to do that is also you want to have greater blessings in your life, then I would say you should always choose to donate to the temple, to monasteries first, before you donate to other things in the conventional organizations or whatever. Of course, if you are really a person with no mind of separation, then it also doesn't matter. Maybe you are enlightened, and doesn't matter whatever you do, you enjoy actually equal blessings because your mind is so pure. But because we are not there yet, as unenlightened beings, if you want to have greater blessings in your life, then to make offerings to the Sangha, to the temple, to monasteries will actually bring you more blessings in your life. This is actually true. Also, the Buddha talked about why making offerings to the Sangha actually give us so much blessings. And also on our spiritual path, without the Sangha living in the world to carry out, to expounding the Dharma, then there will be no beings in the world that can hear the Dharma, and no beings will have the chance to exit the cycle of samsara. Imagine if no people talk about the Pure Land Dharma or other Buddha Dharma, then there is really no way for us to exit the cycle of reincarnation. So it's important that we also cultivate making offerings to the Sangha. It's not really about helping the Sangha. It may look like that we are helping maybe the temple, we think, when we are giving money. But most importantly, the person who benefits the most is actually yourself. And also, we should try to extensively cultivate making offerings to the people around us, like to our family, to our friends, of course. And the more we give, the more we offer, the more we'll get in return. This is how the law of karma works. But we are also not attached. Like in the Dharma Sutra, the Buddha also says that if you want to have the greatest merit when you're practicing good deeds, like the Bodhisattvas, when the Bodhisattvas practice good deeds, the Bodhisattva clearly understands and sees how the law of karma works. That is, the more we give, the more we make offerings, the more really we'll get in return. But they're not even attached to that. Right? So one, practice giving, practice generosity, practice extensively cultivate making offerings, also without attachment to the result, whether we'll get anything back. In that way, you actually will get the most. So this is really interesting. Like the less you ask from anybody, the more you give, the more you will actually get in return. This is how the law of karma works. And this stands true regardless of what we do. So And for Pure Land practitioners, we really actually don't need to ask anything for return. Whatever good deeds we do, for Pure Land practitioners, I'm talking about. And you don't need to worry that if you don't ask, you will not get. The law of karma always operates like that. For Pure Land practitioners, for all the good deeds that we practice on earth, we should transfer towards seeking rebirth. This will also help us to attain a higher grade of rebirth. We don't need to actually ask for any blessings in the Saha world. Remember, all is impermanent. And also remember, it doesn't mean that if you don't ask, you will not get. You will get more actually, right? But you're not attached. We're not attached to whatsoever blessings we may get. For instance, when we maybe make offerings to the Sangha, we're not attached to maybe when will the money come back to me in this life. It doesn't matter because we know that we're going to be the richest person in the entire Dharma realm after we go to the Pure Land, after we realize Buddhahood. Actually, as soon as we land in the Pure Land, we are already enjoying the blessings of the richest being in the Dharma world, in the entire Dharma realm. So really, we don't need to be attached to whatsoever blessings we may or may not get here in the Saha world. If we can make offerings with this kind of mindset, then you will have actually the most blessings in your life and more merit and virtue. So the less we are attached when we are practicing extensively cultivate making offerings, we're practicing maybe giving, generosity, the more we'll get in return. And this is a habit that we actually need to constantly cultivate because we have, again, the habitual tendency to tend to hold on to things. And we like to collect more and more, or maybe ask more from others instead of giving. This is our habitual tendency. So we really need to cultivate this habit of making offerings so we can overcome our attachment to illusions. And how to do that? Maybe at the beginning it's really difficult. Maybe it's difficult for us to maybe give $100, let's say, to a temple. Right? Maybe we can practice giving $1, $10. Eventually, as our mind, our heart expands, then we feel, it's actually okay. I can actually give more. It's not a problem. So the more we give, and you don't need to worry that you are losing your money, while you're seeing less money in your bank account. I actually don't worry so much about that. Blessings really know the person. When you need the money, maybe in the future, it may not come back exactly as the form of money. The blessings can be in many forms. The blessings will actually take care of you. And I'm also talking about this from my own personal experience. When we first studied the Buddha Dharma, the Buddha already told us. Some people ask, how can I be financially wealthy, rich? How can I be well off? So I don't need to worry so much about survival issues. If I nian for, when will my bank account increase? I actually get questions like that. So actually the Buddha actually told us about that. If you want to get rich, practice giving, practice generosity. It may sound counterintuitive, right? Because the bank will tell you to save, save more with this plan, whatever. Money likes to make friends as well. If you want to get rich, you actually need to do the opposite, right? To learn to give more. And you say, maybe I don't have money to give, I'm already too poor. Or maybe give other things. Whatever you have, you can give. Maybe give your knowledge, share whatever good things that you have with others. The more we share, and the more popular you will be actually, the more people would like to be friends with you, and more blessings will actually come to you. So it's really reasonable and logical, and that's how the law of karma works. So if you want to get rich in this life, let's say, okay, even for Pure Land practitioners, if we still pray for maybe good blessings, more blessings, maybe more money in this life or whatever, then you need to actually start cultivate making offerings. It's like an investment. You may not immediately see the money maybe triple in your bank account when you cultivate making offerings. You may see even less money in your bank account, but eventually the blessings will come back to you. The blessings will walk around and then come back with more interest. And you can test this actually, if you have doubt in that. And I'm actually talking about this also from my personal experience. I'm not just talking about this. When I first heard this from the Buddhist Sutra, also from Master Chin Kong's Dharma talk, also from my teacher, Master Renshan, I also had a little bit of doubt. Oh, is it really real? And then I also experiment with it. And every time it comes back with more. Maybe not exactly in the form of money. I actually usually don't have much cash with me at all. Whenever I have money, I always try to give to just different things, maybe to the temple, maybe to my teacher, Master Renshan, maybe to other people who need. But my blessings will take care. I'm also quite lucky in a way that in my life, I never have to actually work for money. I never have to worry anything about survival issues for my birth, actually. So I'm also extremely blessed in this aspect. And I don't have money in my bank account. It's just my blessings. Take care of it. Also, I feel maybe in the past, I've had done something good. Maybe I have cultivated some kind of giving in the past. So even though in this life, I don't have much money with me, like in terms of cash, because whenever I receive, I just give. But my blessings always take care of whatever needs I need. So this is actually real. You can actually go and test this and experiment this. You don't need to believe in what I say or even what the Buddha said in the Sutra or what Bodhisattva Samantabhadra is telling us. If you don't believe, it's very common for people to doubt about the teachings from the Sutra, from the Buddha. You go and experiment for yourself, and then you'll see. And I'm not saying that you need to, constantly cultivate making offering, maybe just to donate all my money from my bank account. You also don't need to do that. And most people probably cannot do that. What we can do is maybe say, okay, you have, say, $100, right? Maybe with this, you can divide into proportions, like maybe 10%, 20%, you can give to people in need, or whoever. You can make offerings to certain people for certain purpose. So I'm not saying you need to give like everything you have. We're not yet like the Buddha, like Shakyamuni Buddha, who actually gave up everything, absolutely everything. When he left the palace to become an ascetic to try to pursue enlightenment, he actually already performed this. He absolutely give up everything. So for most of us, we cannot, because we also have an attachment, and also because if you live in this world, you do need some kind of a material possessions to help you. So you keep whatever you need. And then maybe when you think there's a bit of spare, you can actually try to cultivate making offerings. You don't need to be a rich person to do that. Right? Sometimes people say, oh, I need to be really rich so I can make offerings to others, or I can give to others. It's not like that. Right? To give, it's an attitude. To cultivate making offerings, it's really an attitude, it's a mindset. It doesn't mean that you need to be a rich person for you to give. A rich person, maybe they can give more in terms of the money, but if you have $100, maybe you can give $10. If you have $10, maybe you can give $1. If you have only $1, you can maybe give 1 cent. It's just like a habit, how we cultivate a habit of making offerings. And this will really help us to really expand our mind, expand our heart, to help us overcome our attachment to illusions. And also, when we give, we're actually the happiest. Right? I'm not sure whether you've noticed, I have noticed. So when I try to help others, when I give to others, or when I make offerings, I actually feel the joyous, the happiest when I do that. So yeah, experiment for yourself. And here Bodhisattva Samantabhadra says, I make offerings to them with superb and wonderful gifts. So Bodhisattva Samantabhadra is always constantly making offerings to all beings, actually, like all the Buddhas in all the lands, everyone, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas. And then what does he give? With superb and wonderful gifts. Like he always gives them like the best gifts. Because Bodhisattva Samantabhadra has the greatest blessing. So of course he can give all these superb and wonderful gifts. And then he talk about some examples like clouds of flowers, clouds of garlands, clouds of heavenly music, all this heavenly clothing, incense, perfumes, burning incense, all these clouds of gifts, clouds of gifts. A metaphor means a lot of gifts, like the clouds in the world, and the amount of this gift is like the King Meru, King Sumeru in Buddhism is a center of one world. So, and not only that, also all these candles, all kinds of candles, and it's also the lamppost is as tall as Mount Sumeru. All these are like metaphor to talk about how much Bodhisattva Samantabhadra is extensively cultivate making offerings, truly extensively cultivate making offerings. And not only that, with all kinds of offerings such as this, I constantly make offerings. So it's a constant practice, constant habit. So if you want to have good blessings in life, then really cultivate giving, cultivate making offerings. So we see people in our world enjoy different blessings, right? And someone also asked for some people who were born into rich family, or blessed with maybe good appearance and everything, they must have done something good in the past. Indeed, karma is really fair. If there's anything that's fair, it's our karma. So we live in accordance to the karma that we have committed from our past life, and also the blessings we bring from our past lives. So our situation currently, it's also dependent on the blessings we bring with us from our past life and also this life. And is there a way to actually change our life? Yes, the Buddha told us there's a way to change our life if we change our actions, our speech and mind. So if you want to enjoy more blessings, even in this life, I try to cultivate making offerings. And also, all these examples that Bodhisattva Samantabhadra give here is also like a metaphor. So for instance, all these offerings is related also to everyday life, like clothing, like incense, and like lamp. Like lamp is like the brightness, like the Buddha Dharma, the Buddha, the three jewels is really like the bright light, the bright lamp, to light up the darkness in the room, in our mind. This oil can also be seem like a motivation. We need to have this motivation to also practice the Dharma. And also incense in Buddhism usually is used as a metaphor to represent the virtue of the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas, and also the Buddha nature. So in the temple, usually we burn incense. It's also trying to remind us that we also have this perfect merit and virtue like the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So for us, we don't have the great blessings like Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, but it doesn't matter. What we talk about, the good, wonderful gifts. Gifts that we can offer with the best of our capacities, maybe just within our own capacity, what we can give, then that is like the best gifts. And also don't worry, when you give, you're not losing anything. When you're making offerings, you're not losing anything. Just remember, you cannot actually bring anything with you after you go in this life. So why don't we try to transform whatever resources we have into blessings, actually, into helping others and transform them into blessings. Our blessings is actually also not away from our Buddha nature. Absolutely nothing is away from our Buddha nature. When we expand our heart, when we expand our mind, that's when our blessings will also be expanded. So you can also read the 4 lessons of Liao Fan, also a classic Confucius and also Buddhist text in China. You can actually Google it and download it in English, talking about how Liao Fan actually changed his life also through extensively cultivate, making offerings, practicing giving, and other Buddhist teachings. The 6 Patriarch Platform Sutra and Master Huinan, the 6 Patriarch, 10 Patriarch, talk about how all the blessings is not away from our Buddha nature. And remember, for Pure Land practitioners, you absolutely do not need to worry about losing anything when you give or when you make offerings. Remember, Amitabha Buddha already makes infinite blessings to us when we go to the Pure Land. Everything awaits us there in the Pure Land. So we will absolutely not lose anything. So we should just share and make offerings as much as we can. The world really needs more light. So light up yourself and also share as much as what you have with others. Sharing is caring and sharing is happiness. It's definitely a habit we need to constantly cultivate. And next, from the sutra, so good men, amongst all these offerings, the gift of the Dharma is the most supreme. That is to say, the offering of cultivation according to the teachings, the offering of benefiting all living beings, the offering of receiving and guiding living beings, the offering of taking on the suffering for living beings, the offering of diligently cultivating good roots, the offering of not forsaking the Bodhisattva's deeds, and the offering of not renouncing the Bodhicitta. So before, Bodhisattva Samantabhadra talk about all the offerings in terms of goods, possessions, gifts. And here particularly talking about the gift of the Dharma. Important emphasis. The gift of the Dharma is the most supreme. Why? And first of all, what does it mean to say the gift of the Dharma? And that is to say the offering of cultivation according to the teachings. So when we say the gift of the Dharma, we don't mean that it's only restricted to maybe sharing sutra talks or texts from the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha's teaching absolutely already include everything. Also include the form of making, for instance, offerings in the form of money, in the form of other things. When we talk about Dharma, it's not only restricted to just sutras and text. It already includes absolutely everything. The offering of cultivation according to the teachings, that includes absolutely everything. The teachings of the Buddha, that covers all aspects in our life. The offering of benefiting all living beings. So next, it's giving all these examples. What does it mean to say cultivation according to the teachings? So it includes benefit all living beings in all kinds of ways, whatever we can make offerings to benefit all living beings. The offering of receiving and guiding living beings. Also, bodhisattvas adopt skillful means to try to receive, to help people, and then to guide people on the path of the Dharma. So for instance, you can also share the Buddha Dharma, share the Buddha's teaching with your family and friends. You don't need to be an expert or professional to do that. Maybe something you heard tonight that you felt really good. You can just share 1 or 2 sentences, 1 line to maybe your family, your friend that you think other people can benefit. Or you tell them to Nianfo, to chant Amitofo. So this, you're also benefiting others and also guiding other people on the path of the Dharma. And the bodhisattvas will even take on the suffering for living beings. Why is it so? When Buddhas and bodhisattvas, they live in the Pure Land, but they will never forget us here in the samsara. So they will always come back. They may not come back in the form of a Buddha or bodhisattva. They can just come back in all kinds of forms, appear in all kinds of situations, in all kinds of instances to help us. So it's really like they are taking on the suffering for us when they could just enjoy the perfect life there in the Pure Land. But they're not. They choose to come back here to the Saha world, not only in the human realm. In the Hungry Ghost realm, there are bodhisattvas, like Guan Yin always also in the Hungry Ghost realm as well. And in the Hell realm, there's always Siddhagarbha Bodhisattva and all the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So it's really like they are sort of forsaking their perfect life in the Pure Land, come here to take on the suffering for living beings for the purpose of helping living beings to be free from sufferings in life. A really inconceivable state, and also the spirit of the Bodhisattvas and the Buddhas are really touching. And we should try to learn from them. And maybe we cannot really take on the suffering for others, difficult, but at least we can also try within our best capacity to help as much as we can. And the offering of diligently cultivating good roots. So when we talk about good roots in Buddhism, we usually say, this person has good roots. What does it mean? Like conventional good roots, for instance, this person has less greed, anger, and ignorance. This is what we mean when we say some people have good roots. In the conventional sense, it's like a tree. When the tree has good roots, deep roots, the tree can take in nutrients really well, and the tree can grow really well. That's what we mean when we say good roots. And good roots in the Buddha Dharma also means that this person can quickly understand and easily accept and uphold the Buddha's teachings. This is also what we talk about good roots in Buddhism. For instance, you tell someone to kneel to seek rebirth to the Pure Land, and they instantly believe. This really shows good roots from past life. Not a coincidence either. And next, not forsaking the Bodhisattva's deeds. What are the Bodhisattva's deeds? All these 10 great practices and vows, and also the aspiration for realizing Buddhahood to help all sentient beings. And the conclusion, the offering of not renouncing the bodhicitta. So never renounce the bodhicitta, not to regress on our bodhicitta. What's bodhicitta? Again, the mind for realizing perfect enlightenment for the sake of helping all sentient beings. This is the big goal we are talking about here. Never forget this in our mind. If we have this all the time, if we keep the bodhicitta all the time, then you will have a lot of energy. You have a lot of oil, a lot of momentum and motivation in what you do. So you will not complain so much in your everyday life. Sometimes what's the difference between us and a true bodhisattva is that when we help others, and maybe other people, they don't like to hear what you say or whatever, they don't want to receive your help, and then we can easily complain about other people. We get just so impatient, frustrated easily with others, whereas bodhisattvas, to them doesn't matter. Okay, so maybe I say this person doesn't want to hear me, well, let's move on to the next. So this is really like the attitude of the bodhisattva. It's like never renounce the bodhicitta, non-regression in the bodhicitta, at least in the mind. This is the spirit of the bodhisattva, and this is also what we should learn from the bodhisattvas. And with that, you will never complain in your life because you know you have greater big goal. So what if some people, they don't want to listen to what you say about the Buddha Dharma? Then you move on to other people. Remember, for the bodhisattvas, the clients, particularly after we go to the Pure Land, our clients, once we go to the Pure Land, is in the entire Dharma realm, in the 10 directions. So it doesn't matter if sentient people, they don't want to listen to the Buddha Dharma, they don't believe that the Saha world is impermanent, they don't believe the existence of Amitabha Buddha in the Pure Land, then just keep on going to tell other people who may have the good enough roots to believe in what you say. So never renounce the bodhicitta and never be easily discouraged by anything. This is important. And last, a good man, the immeasurable merit and virtue created by previous offerings. When compared with the merit and virtue from a single thought of offering the Dharma, does not equal to 1 part in 100, 1 part in 1,000, 1 part in 100,000 kotis of the yotis, 1 part in the color, 1 part in calculation, 1 part in a point, 1 part by metaphor, or 1 part in the Upanishad. None of this can measure up to a single part. So this is talking about all the immeasurable merit and virtue created by the previous offerings. The previous offerings were the offerings of lamps, oils, clothing, and all this like material kind of offerings. All this cannot even be compared to a single thought, like someone who generates a single thought of offering the Dharma, offering the teachings of the Buddha. It cannot be compared. And why is this so? Because all Tathagatas honor the Dharma. Cultivating according to the teachings gives birth to all Buddhas. If all Bodhisattvas make the offering of the Dharma, they perfect the making of offerings to all Tathagatas. Cultivating in accordance with this manner is called the true offering. So why the gift of the Dharma is so precious? Is the most supreme, because it's because of this Buddhas are born. Like, how can we become Buddhas? How can other people become Buddhas? It's when they receive the teachings of the Buddha and they practice in accordance to the teachings of the Buddhas. That's why it's so important for us to make offerings of the Dharma. If we know just a little bit, we actually don't know much, and just the tiniest bit we know, we can share. And this, you are greatly helping to produce a future Buddha. This is really immeasurable merit and virtue. For Pure Land practitioners, if you can even take one person with you to the Pure Land, immeasurable merit and virtue, you literally create a future Buddha. If you can take more Buddhas with you to the Pure Land, more future Buddhas, really immeasurable merit and virtue, cannot even be compared with the offering of anything, cannot even be said, inconceivable. So the Buddha Dharma is really the path for perfect, complete awakening. And that's why we absolutely need to extensively cultivate making offerings of the Buddha Dharma, to make the Dharma available as much as possible in everywhere in the world, in the 10 directions, in the entire Dharma realm. So cultivating in accordance with this manner is called the true offering. This is what we call the true offerings, what Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, what the Buddhas call the true offerings here. And when you make the offering of the Dharma, it's like you perfect the making of offerings to all Tathagatas. You perfect the making of offerings to all the Buddhas. So that is the true offering. And just a conclusion, such vast, great, and most supreme offering till the realm of empty space is exhausted, the realms of living beings are exhausted, the karma of living beings is exhausted, the afflictions of living beings are exhausted, only will my offerings be exhausted. Just as the realm of empty space, up to and including the afflictions are inexhaustible, so too are my offerings inexhaustible. It continues in thought after thought without ceasing. The karma of my body, speech, and mind, never weary of it. So the cultivation, again, is constant. The practice is constant, moment to moment, day to day. If we want to live the best life possible, this is what we should try to practice and to cultivate in our everyday life. So I hope all of you can enjoy great blessings in your life by extensively cultivate making offerings. And we can begin with just little things in life, and we can begin with just the people around us, step by step, to help expand our heart, expand our mind, and to live really the happiest life, the most meaningful life here on earth. And then we go to the Pure Land to enjoy infinite blessings, infinite light, infinite happiness, infinite bliss, and infinite life, of course. So just the merit transfer, you can join your hands to your heart center. May the resulting merit and virtue be distributed everywhere without discrimination. May we all generate the unsurpassed bodhicitta and be born in the land of peace and bliss. Amitabha.